The one with the mugging is the 15th episode of season 9 of Friends. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a solid episode. I'm sure I said this about every episode in season 9, but it's really delightful. As always, I will talk about each of the main parts of the narrative in turn and share some thoughts. I will talk about Chandler first, then Joey, and then Phoebe and Ross. Chandler has got an advertising internship. I like the fact that they didn't drag out Chandler looking for work for too long. I think the perfect amount of time had passed. Maybe they could have kept it on going for a few more episodes, but I think, for me at least, as a viewer, there is this need to see Chandler being happy, taking the next step on his career, and that step happened to be an internship. And they managed to get quite a bit of humour out of this that felt very realistic, because when he gets there, he realises that he's quite a bit older than all of the other interns. But I love the fact that the show is very clearly saying it is never too late. It is never too late to try something new. You haven't ever missed your opportunity to do what you love or to do something different. I'm sure there might be some careers where there are exceptions, but it's definitely highlighting the fact that Chandler's not letting his age stop him. And we see this working really well. We have some sneakers with wheels, and the bloopers for these scenes are very, very funny, which just adds to the episode itself. If you haven't seen them, they're definitely worth watching. But Chandler has to come up with a slogan and an advertising idea for these sneakers with wheels. And he comes up with a great idea. And I have to say, it sounds very effective. And it wouldn't surprise me if anybody has used that idea. I don't know if they could technically use it, since it would be stealing an idea, but could you steal an idea that a fictitious character created? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But the idea he comes up with, and it's revealed in this delightful scene in front of the other interns, is an adult of Chandler's age puts on the shoes, and it doesn't go according to plan, and it comes up with the slogan, "Not suitable for adults," which I just think is fabulous. It's simple, it's effective, and I like the fact that Chandler was able to use his age to his advantage and maybe poke fun at it a little bit, which I thought was really effective. And again, it's showing not only is it never too late to start something new, but age can actually have value, because, well, I'm willing to bet that none of the other interns there would have come up with that. Or indeed, if they had, they might not have felt comfortable pitching it, because it does come across as ageist. But obviously, from Chandler's perspective, it works very well. So I think there are a lot of great messages there, and I think it's a really, really great thing for Chandler, and it's just an absolute delight to see. And as I said, the bloopers surrounding this, absolutely fabulous. Then we comes to Joey. And Joey gets an audition with Leonard Hayes, played by Jeff Goldblum. And he reads the scene with him. And Joey, reading his lines, says, "Oh, I want to," long pause, "but I can't." Yes, Joey read out the direction in the script. He was supposed to have a long pause, but he read it out, and it's so simple but so effective. And my favourite response in the whole episode, in fact, one of my favourite things that Joey's ever said, is he asks Leonard Hayes for some tips, because it's clearly not going very well. And Leonard Hayes says to him, "You're thinking way too much." And without missing a beat, Joey responds, "I really doubt that." I love it. I think it's fabulous. And Joey gets a chance to take on the advice, to come back later on, to give it another go. And he actually really needs to pee. He was running late. He didn't have time to go to the bathroom, so he has to do the audition while needing to pee. And it turns out needing to pee makes him a great actor. It gave him the energy he needed, this kind of nervous, fidgeting energy, and it's exactly what Leonard Hayes was looking for. So he gets to come back later, it goes well, and then he comes back again, and it's fantastic. Everything's going well. The part is for Joey. Leonard Hayes hugs him, and it's very clearly implied, first by Joey's face, and then the fact that Leonard Hayes kind of looks down, that Joey couldn't hold it in any longer, and he peed himself. And I could have done without that, but it was a fantastic performance from Joey, really great to see. I love the fact that he was wanting to take feedback on board and come back again, and obviously it's going to be disheartening when things don't go well, but I think it's the sign of a really great approach when anybody is willing to take the feedback on board rather than being disheartened by it. So all round really solid part of the episode. Then things get a little emotional. And we have to think of Phoebe in a way where I think I speak for most people when I say we really don't want to think of Phoebe like this. Phoebe mugged Ross. And we find this out because Phoebe and Ross were walking outside together. Phoebe and Ross on their own together, not something that happens that often. So that was quite interesting. And they're mugged by Lowell, Phoebe's friend from the streets. He's played by Kyle Gass. And obviously, once he realizes it's Phoebe, they have a nice catch-up and everything's fine. And Phoebe and Ross go into Central Park where Monica is. And we learn that Ross was actually mugged as a teenager or as a child. And he was mugged outside the comic book store, and the mugger stole his artwork for Science Boy, his own comic book character creation. And I don't think Phoebe's really giving anything away at this point. I don't think, it's obviously hard to know because I don't remember the first time I watched this, but I don't think it's immediately obvious that Phoebe was Ross's mugger. It's only when he leaves, Phoebe tells Monica that she was the one who mugged Ross when she was living on the street. And I don't think any of us wants to think of Phoebe in that way, but we know Phoebe has a past. And she's actually quite excited now because finally she has a connection with one of the group that goes way back, which I guess is kind of sweet. And Ross is understandably annoyed and irritated. And I don't know how I'd feel. I tried to put myself in Ross's position. If I were ever mugged, I imagine it would be an incredibly terrifying and scarring experience. I feel like I am the kind of person where it would affect me really negatively long term. I'm the kind of person I think who would struggle to come back from that because I don't like social interaction in general. And for Ross to find out that one of his closest friends was the cause of that pain, I can't imagine how I'd feel. And I think Ross's response was very believable. And certainly I bought into that part of the story. Phoebe tries to make amends. And I do think that this is really sweet because she brings Ross a box that's labelled crap from the street. And it turns out Phoebe kept Science Boy. The box is full of things that she thought were too special to get rid of. And she really liked Ross's Science Boy artwork. And I guess, as we see, that validation is more powerful than I guess the kind of betrayal Ross felt, even though it's technically not betrayal because they didn't know each other. It certainly turned things around for Ross, and it was a really lovely moment. And the episode actually ends with Ross going over to Monica's apartment and she confirms that she's already heard that it was Phoebe who mugged Ross, and yep, she's told everybody they know. It was a funny way to end things. It's obviously a very serious topic, and I think they managed to highlight the fact that it can be a really, well, almost always would be a really scary experience that can have some long-lasting impact, but they also managed to get a decent amount of comedy out of it as well, so it's not too heavy, and I think it was very, very well handled. And in general, as I said at the beginning, I think this is a really brilliant episode of Friends. Season 9 it has to be my favourite, because I feel like every episode is just fabulous, and I'm pretty confident it's my favourite. Season 10 is amazing, but it's a little bit more emotional, so it's not so much that it's not as enjoyable, but it's we know we're heading towards the end, and that makes it a bit of a rough ride. But season 9, we're not that close yet, and it's an absolute joy. And of course, the one with the mugging is a really brilliant episode of Friends.